In the year 1912, a rare book dealer walked into a Jesuit library outside Rome and found a book that should not exist. It had no title, no author, no date. It was written in an alphabet that matched nothing on earth. Not Latin, not Greek, not Arabic, not Chinese, not any language ever catalogued by linguists. The pages were filled with drawings of plants that don't grow anywhere in nature. There were diagrams of stars and constellations that don't match any known sky. And scattered throughout were dozens of nude women, bathing in strange green pools connected by tubes and pipes, like something out of a fever dream. The man's name was Wilfred Voynich. The book that now carries his name has survived some of history's greatest codebreakers. World War II codebreakers, the NSA's best cryptographers, Alan Turing's generation of mathematicians, and 60 years of supercomputers. Every single one of them failed. Some walked away convinced the book is a forgotten language from a lost civilization. Others became convinced it's an elaborate hoax, built specifically to drive brilliant minds insane trying to solve something that was never meant to mean anything at all. By the end of this video, you're going to understand why a 500-year-old book with no readable words in it might be the most dangerous puzzle ever created. And we're not stopping there, because the Voynich Manuscript isn't alone. There are at least 5 other codes scattered across human history that remain unbroken to this very day. One of them involves a CIA sculpture, a secret auction, and a twist that happened only a few months ago. Let's start at the beginning. For most of its life, nobody knew where this manuscript came from. It surfaces in historical records around 1612, when it's believed to have belonged to Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph II. He was a man famously obsessed with alchemy and the occult, who reportedly paid 600 gold ducats for it. 600 ducats for one book in the 1600s. That's the rough equivalent of a small fortune. Whoever owned this thing before him believed it held something extraordinary. From Rudolph, the trail goes cold for decades, until a letter surfaces from a Prague alchemist named Georg Beresch. In 1639, Beresch wrote to a famous Jesuit scholar, begging for help. He described owning a book filled with pictures of plants and stars and monstrosities, written in a script nobody around him could read. He called it a book that occupied space uselessly in his library. Even back then, almost 400 years ago, this thing was already driving people crazy. The manuscript disappeared again until 1912, when Wilfred Voynich found it folded inside a chest in a Jesuit college in Italy. He spent the rest of his life trying to convince the world it was real. He claimed it would, in his own words, startle the scientific world. He died before anyone believed him. So here's the first question that should be bothering you right now. How do you prove a 500-year-old book isn't just an elaborate fake built by the man who found it? In 2009, scientists at the University of Arizona finally answered that question. They used radiocarbon dating on the actual calfskin parchment, not the ink, the skin itself. The analysis showed a 95% confidence interval, placing the parchment's creation between the years 1404 and 1438. That's roughly 200 years before Voynich was even born. The samples were taken from 4 separate pages, and the dates clustered tightly together. That's strong evidence the calfskin all came from animals slaughtered around the same time, likely from a single herd in Central Europe. This single piece of science quietly destroyed almost every popular theory about the book. It ruled out the idea that 13th century friar Roger Bacon wrote it, since he was dead 200 years before this parchment was even made. It made forgery by Voynich himself essentially impossible too, since the ink itself also dated to the correct period. As one historian later put it, the idea that a forger could have located 14 or 15 entire calfskins of genuinely unused, 500-year-old parchment is, frankly, inconceivable. So we know when it was made. We have no idea what it says. And here is where the manuscript stops being just an old book and starts becoming something genuinely unsettling. The text, which researchers now call Voynich, isn't random. If you ran gibberish through a computer and analyzed its statistical patterns, it would look like noise. But Voynich doesn't. The way certain characters cluster together, the way word lengths distribute, the relationship between common and rare symbols, all of it mimics something real. It mimics the deep statistical fingerprint of genuine written language. Statistical analyses reveal sophisticated linguistic patterns, including non-random word relationships and consistent structure. These are patterns that would be extraordinarily difficult to invent by hand without computational tools that didn't exist until after the 1940s. Think about that for a second. A document written sometime around 1420 contains patterns so mathematically consistent that researchers question whether a human being, alone, with a quill, could have faked them convincingly. And yet, after a century of attempts by some of the greatest code-breaking minds who ever lived, no proposed language has ever produced a convincing translation. That includes the team that helped crack Nazi Enigma machines during World War II. Not even a single verified page. So what is this actually for? The manuscript divides into distinct sections. A herbal section, packed with drawings of unidentified plants. An astronomical section, with zodiac symbols and star charts. A biological section, with those strange bathing women. A rosette section, showing 9 enormous interlocking circular diagrams that may represent cities, or the cosmos, or something we have no name for. And a final recipe section, dense with text and small star-shaped markers in the margins, almost like bullet points. It looks exactly like a medieval medical or pharmacological text, the type physicians once used to select the correct plant roots and the correct timing to treat their patients. But here's the detail that should give you chills. Many of the plants in the herbal section aren't copies of real plants at all. The roots of one species have been fused onto the leaves of an entirely different plant, with the flowers of a third grafted on top. These are composite organisms, stitched together like a botanical Frankenstein. Either the author was inventing an entire fictional flora from scratch, or they were describing plants from somewhere nobody has ever been able to identify. And then there's the sunflower problem. One page appears to show a flower with a large central disc and small surrounding petals, features that strongly resemble a sunflower. Sunflowers are native to the Americas. They were completely unknown in Europe until after Columbus, decades after this parchment was dated. If that drawing really is a sunflower, the entire dating becomes a contradiction nobody can explain. Most researchers who've studied the image closely now believe the resemblance is superficial. The proportions don't actually match real 16th century sunflower varieties. But the fact that this debate even exists tells you everything about how this manuscript makes you question your own eyes. So who actually wrote it, and why? Theories have ranged from a 13th century alchemist, to a Renaissance Florentine architect, to a 16th century occultist forger named Edward Kelly. Kelly made his living inventing fake mystical languages for wealthy patrons. That last theory is undercut by the same radiocarbon evidence, since the parchment simply predates Kelly by over a century, and his documented writing style doesn't match what's on these pages. Today, the original sits behind glass at Yale University's Botanical Library, cataloged under the painfully ordinary name Ms. 408. Every page has been scanned and made freely available online. Anyone on Earth can look at it right now. And not one person in over 400 years has been able to tell you what it says. Here's something that should genuinely disturb you. The Voynich Manuscript isn't even the oldest unsolved text in human history. It's just the most famous one with a face you can put a name to. There are others, older, stranger, and in one case, only recently caught up in a controversy that's still unfolding right now. The Phaistos Disc, discovered in 1908 on the island of Crete. This is a circular clay disc stamped with 241 symbols, arranged in a spiral. It uses a stamping system that predates the printing press by over 3,000 years. Nobody has ever found another object like it, anywhere, from any civilization. No second disc, no dictionary, no Rosetta Stone. Just one single object, with a writing system invented and then apparently abandoned forever. Linear A. This one will make you uncomfortable if you know its sibling. Linear B, a related script used by the ancient Mycenaean Greeks, was famously decoded in the 1950s, proving it recorded an early form of Greek. Linear A, used earlier by the Minoan civilization on Crete, shares some of the same symbols. Researchers assumed cracking Linear B would hand them the key to linear automatically. It didn't. Decades later, it remains exactly as silent as the day it was unearthed. Rongorongo. On Easter Island, carved into wood, exists a script that may be one of the only writing systems ever independently invented by a human society with almost no outside contact. Fewer than 30 original artifacts survive. Most were burned or lost during the island's colonial collapse in the 1860s, when the population that could still read them was decimated. The Dorabella Cipher. This one is smaller, stranger, and almost personal. In 1897, the British composer Edward Elgar, yes, the man who wrote Pomp and Circumstance, sent a short note to a young friend. It was written in 87 curling symbols across 3 lines. He never explained it. He never solved it for her. Elgar died in 1934. The note still sits, unbroken, in an archive. It's proof that you don't need an ancient civilization to create a mystery that outlives you. And then there's the one that's still making headlines as we speak. In 1990, artist Jim Sanborn installed a curved copper sculpture in a courtyard at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. He called it Kryptos. Carved into the metal were 4 separate encrypted messages. Within a decade, NSA analysts and amateur codebreakers cracked the first 3. The 4th section, just 97 characters, starting with the letters Abkiarer, became one of the most famous unsolved puzzles on the planet. For 35 years, nothing. Then, in 2025, 2 researchers digging through Sanborn's donated papers at the Smithsonian archives stumbled onto something explosive. They found 5 pages of scrambled text the artist had accidentally included when he donated his archive. These were documents he'd created back in 1990 to prove to the CIA that the sculpture's hidden message wasn't offensive. In other words, they may have stumbled onto the actual plaintext, sitting quietly in a folder for years. Here's the twist that makes this story so strange. Even the researchers who found it refused to call it a solve. Sanborn himself stood on a stage at the International Spy Museum and told the room directly, "Kryptos has not been solved." He then announced that he intends to auction off the official K4 solution itself. Once it's revealed, he'll unveil a 5th and final hidden message, Key 5, somewhere in a public space. So even right now, in 2026, the world's most famous unsolved CIA code is officially still unsolved. There's something almost comforting about the idea that everything can eventually be known. With enough time, enough computing power, enough brilliant minds staring at a problem, every lock eventually opens. The Voynich Manuscript, the Phaistos Disc, Linear A, Rongorongo. A quiet note from a composer to his friend, and a copper sculpture standing outside the CIA. All of them quietly argue against that comfort. Some of these were written by people who wanted to be understood eventually, and simply ran out of time before the world caught up to them. Others may have been built specifically to never be understood at all. A private joke, a deliberate trap, against a message meant for exactly one reader who is long since gone. We will probably never know which category most of these belong to. Maybe that's the real lesson hiding underneath all of this. Not every mystery is waiting for a hero to solve it. Some of them were never meant to be solved. They were meant to be lived with. They remind us that for all our science, all our supercomputers, and all our certainty, there are still a handful of objects on this planet that say absolutely nothing at all. And maybe that's exactly why we can't stop looking.